Hi, I'm going to do a brief how-to video on the dry tumble method of powder coating bullets. This is a way of getting good jacketed for hand cast or other lead jacketed bullets, lead unjacketed bullets. I'm also going to do two other videos on this topic. One will be on a comparison of other various polycoat methods or similar things, and I will also compare in that video jacketed bullets and traditional bullet lube systems. And my other video will be about some of the whys of why you would want polycoat. So this one will be limited to just how to do it. Hi, so continuing on with the powder coat bullet video here. What I've got is powdered by the pound, 400 degree, I believe it's polyurethane, but I'll put a note in there if that's incorrect. Dry powder coat as you would normally apply with an electrostatic gun. I'm hoping that dryer noise isn't too much, otherwise I'll have to re-record this and just keep the footage of the Tumble. So what I've got here is basically 2/3 of this little tiny jar. It was originally a half pound, which was just more than the jar, and it probably spilled as much as I've got on bullets. The key here is it needs to be dry. You're looking for static bond, so moisture on the bullets, even moisture that you can't quite feel, will make the process take longer. The good news is you can't over apply it by this method. You just tumble until it's evenly coated and stick. That might be 5 minutes, it might be 20. To me, the easiest thing is just to chuck it in there, do something else, and come back 20 minutes later, and it's for sure going to be good. This isn't the fastest in terms of total time, but in terms of actual labor, it's pretty quick. So I would suggest buying about 2 pounds at a time. That will last you forever. I like to have several different colors so I can identify different loads or alloys. So I'm going to pivot this down. So there is my tumbler. It's just a standard Dillon vibratory tumbler. Some people apparently do this with just a Cool Whip tub and hand swirling it. I guess that would work too. It is a nuisance to have my tumbler tied up, and I may switch to the hand swirling method. So here's my rack. I made this out of a pizza pan from a cash and carry food supply store. It was much cheaper to get the mesh this way than to buy a huge roll of hardware cloth for around $50 that I would only use a couple feet of. This was, I think, just under $3. So anyway, I folded it around so that it fits just inside my toaster oven. I'm just going to dump this in there. I don't know, this is maybe 400 bullets, and I've got 2/3 of half of a pound approximately of this powder in there. Again, you can't put too much powder in, just the excess will be sifted off. The main thing is you need to have enough bullets in there that it tumbles well, that's all, and enough powder to thoroughly coat it. As long as you've got those, you really can't get it wrong. So I'll turn this on here. Okay, so it's been tumbling for a while. You can see they're all quite evenly coated. I'm sure I could have tumbled it for a lot less time than this, but I wanted to give it a good thorough coating. So I'm going to set the tripod here. Now I'm doing this inside of linoleum because it's easier to clean this stuff out of linoleum than cement. Don't use a solvent to clean it. Sweep it up with a dustpan, and anything else, use a paper towel with water and it will clean up. I'm wearing gloves that I use for casting because this stuff, once it gets under your fingernails, is pretty hard to get out. I say don't use solvents because a solvent can activate this and effectively turn it into paint, but water will not. It's just on there with static, so it's really no problem to have extra material. What you need here is a sieve. In my case, I'm using a thrift store solid spinner. And this is what you want to see. It was that easy. I see people who spend enormous amounts of time trying to airbrush it on with electrostatic guns or create little stands, and my thinking on it is this. The end goal is to have evenly coated bullets without flaws. You want your coating to protect the bore and provide you a uniform base because that's what affects the accuracy most. Setting each bullet on a stand means you're guaranteed to have a flaw on every base. You're guaranteed to spend a lot of labor. The advantages of this system are that it's cost effective and time effective, and that it provides you with a source of bullets when others aren't available commercially. It's also cost effective. You can negate all of the advantages by spending an enormous amount of time and labor on the system. And it really provides you no advantage that I can work out. And the powder just goes in there. Now, as you can see, there's a couple little speckles on the floor here. It's no big deal. I wipe it up quick because once it gets into little cracks, it's hard to get cleaned and gone. I would not wear your nice clothes, and I would not do this in the kitchen if you're married, so to speak. This is going to be hard to get out of pavement, so that's why I've done it here on the linoleum, and it really is quite easy to wipe off, but like these gloves will probably be stained. So I'm going to move outside and dump those onto the rack and stick them into the oven, but I need to preheat the oven since I had my cord stolen to have it in here. So I just preheated these at 10 minutes. And pulled them out and put them on this, just stuck them in the oven, and I discovered that the camera had turned off. So it's as simple as that. Just sort them out and go. In the time that I preheated the oven, I actually tumbled up another batch. Just right here, which I will pour out and Sift while you're watching here. So you can be relatively labor efficient in this. I'm going to pour this one out here outside. Just not make a mess and be a little bit careful. And now panning for lead. It's really as easy as that. You can see these are kind of on the thick side of the coating. I forgot to show taking them out of the oven on the video, but I just pulled the rack out and dumped it in there, and they all didn't stick to each other or the rack and just fell under. They're still hot to the touch here. A couple that have complete base contact will stick together, but the amount of labor in separating them out and the likelihood of messing up the finish exceeds the problem. Even those come apart quite easily and usually don't show any visible signs. There, that one was just broken loose. It helps to do this kind of thing while it's still hot. I don't think any were still stuck together, and there were maybe 3 pairs that were base-to-base contact out of that. I would usually do a little bigger batch than this. I've used, a quarter of a half a pound to do 10 or so thousand bullets, and I probably spilled more than has actually been on the bullets. You can just barely see through this at the level that I have it. That's about right. It doesn't leave surface flaws. It's very uniform and smooth. It adds about 0.0006 thickness or so, give or take. My instrumentation isn't the most precise, but that would be my estimate. And it actually makes it glide through the sizer. I always size after powder coating, if I'm going to size it all. I mean, if you're lucky with pistol bullets, they'll actually match the diameter you want to use, and your mold will be uniform. This mold tends to cast a little fat for what I want, so I end up usually sizing it. So I'll do these when they're cool enough to handle. There's another batch in the oven that I put in. It's quite thick pile of bullets. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So they're piled onto each other just in a heap. Let's give it another minute to account for that door being open. But it's a remarkably forgiving process compared to some other things. Like I used to use the piglet method, where you float it on with acetone or lacquer thinner, and the lacquer thinner works better than acetone, but all of those you're dealing with nasty solvents and you have limited work time, because after a couple minutes the solvents will start to turn the powder into paint and it will glob on. If you didn't get the right amount of powder in there, too much or too little, it's kind of too late to fix it, and you may have to recast a batch or shoot it in there. As far as leading goes, even if you didn't have a perfectly even coat, you won't get leading. And with this, I'm not talking about reduced leading or minimal leading, I'm talking about none. This is maybe a little bit on the thin side of what I would normally do, but it'll work pretty good. You can see they're pretty consistent bullet to bullet how thick that is. If you put these on an anvil and smack them with a hammer, the coating will stay on there. For the low pressure pistol bullets like I'm doing here, I'd leave it like this. For rifle bullets, I might coat it a little bit thicker or do a second coating, but uniformity is more important than thickness, so the point is to not get it thick and globby on there, because when you get it thick, that's when you get unevenness. Okay, so that's done, and it isn't cookies. So I like to put a tray here to catch it, so because this tray is a little bit floppy. And I'm going to use these gloves here. And the reason I'm showing pulling them out of the oven is that while they generally don't stick together, if they are a little bit, now it's very easy to bust them apart without... flip that to where it's more visible. So hopefully that's in shot there. I'll zoom in. Okay, so you can see, you can stir them around with my fingers, they're not stuck together, they're evenly coated, no bald patches. If for some reason they are stuck, having a stick without sharp corners to just kind of knock them out does real well and doesn't get your hands as hot. This is 400-degree pellets of lead, which is a fairly good heat conductor. But really, I just pour them off into another container and get the oven preheating for the next batch. And that's the beauty of doing it with the dry tumble, is there's no surplus powder to stick everything together. There's just enough to evenly coat the bullets. So here I'll show my tray here. Again, see how nice they look? They're still quite slippery. I like to, if I'm planning to size them after about 10 or 15 minutes of cooling. Then they're still a little bit slipperier and softer, but not too hot to hold. It's not necessary to do that. They still glide right through the die even if you let them fully cool. It's just that little bit of extra slipperiness. Anyway, the main thing you care about is that the bases are evenly coated, particularly the corners of the bases. That's where you would get gas cutting. Most people are worried about the grease screw area in the driving band. Even if there was a tiny bald patch there, which there isn't, I don't think you'd get any noticeable leading. But that base affects your accuracy, and also that's where you would get gas cutting if you were going to. So anyway, that's why I have this night recording, as I forgot to do that earlier with the last batch, so this whole video is waited till the next time I needed a pile of bullets. Hopefully this is all audible. So I've given them about 10 minutes to cool, and I just wanted to show how easy sizing is. These are about 358 out of the mold, and the coating I believe adds another 0.005, so they'd be like 0.3585. And I'm going to size these all to 357. It works well for both 9mm and 38s, I found that way, and so it's just handy to have a one-size-fits-all. I wouldn't normally need to size these, but I like them to run in everybody's gun, and it doesn't seem to hamper accuracy with mine, and I would do this every time with rifle. I'm not sizing them before I coat them, I'm only sizing them after. I did take a batch of 30 cal and size them to 309 very precisely and check a lot of them, and then powder coated them and then measured afterwards before sizing and found that they were 309.5 very consistently. So this gives a really consistent, I guess it'd be 1/4 coating. Anyway, they almost feel greased going through. They're very smooth and buttery. Just so you can see, it's fingertips here. You could almost poke them through the die with your hands. So these are probably actually not a full 358 to start with. They're probably 358 after this stuff. Kind of depends on alloy, how big they come out. I didn't actually measure this batch, but typically this mold drops 358 with my alloy. Anyway, you can see no resistance. It's very easy. This is a whole lot messy, or less messy, and a whole lot cheaper than a lubricizer. I mean, this press and the die set together between them is about $45 to $50 worth of stuff. And this is faster than a lubricizer because you don't have to take it back out. It just pops right on through. Find it to be very clean. I regularly size from 3/112 before coating down to a very consistent 309 without deformation. This works really well. I don't have any of the rifle bullets that aren't sized right now to show that, but I just wanted to show this operation in the video here. Anyway, that gives you a good idea. I'll fish a couple out of here so you can see that they're not scraped off. So let's try to get that in the light. Okay, let's it's a little bit hot. I'll try to get that a little less direct lighting. Well, hopefully that turns up well in the camera, but you can see it's evenly coated. The base is even. There's no like ring or sharp crease from being pushed through the sides. They're just smoothly gliding through. Anyway, I really think this is the way to do bullets. You know, if I was only shooting outdoors as my general habit, then I would probably just do 45, 45, 10 for the pistol bullets. But they let me use these indoors at a range. And this bullet here actually will be useful. I apparently cast this one a little hot. It's kind of got a flange on the base from the sprue cutter smearing it. So when I push this through, I'll see a little silver ring. And when I'm loading these, that will really stand out against the other bullets, and I'll catch that. Not that I wouldn't right now, but I would feel this one go through. Even then it wasn't that much force. It'll take like another 3 for that to float to the surface. Oh, that one's pretty. There's one more. Right, here we go. So you can see that one. It shows up as being a little flared and knocks the base over. So this one would be a cast again. I mean, I could actually trim it with my thumbnail and it would probably shoot fine. But it's easy enough to recast. And you can see there's less lead exposed than with a conventionally lubed bullet. So even there, this is a fairly clean base and it would shoot fine. So there you go. I like to run my hands over the bullets and I'll feel sharp edges if there's anything weird like that usually. That's a good way to check them. Obviously wash my hands afterwards. I recommend getting a thing of these nitrile gloves because this powder coat is messy. I guess a last thought on cleaning up the powder coat. You will likely get powder everywhere sooner or later. Don't try to use any solvents to clean it up. Just a paper towel with a little bit of water on it. It'll stick to the paper towel and it'll wipe up pretty well. But if you get solvents on it, that will turn it into a conventional paint after a couple minutes more or less. And it will be a fixture of life. It does tend to get into your pores. It's really hard to get out from under your fingernails. Not because it's like glued onto you, just because it's a fine dust that gets in there. It's like brake dust or something. So that's why I recommend the nitrile gloves. Don't do it in your wife's kitchen. Or your own kitchen. Anyway, that's all for now.